Let me share my screen first. Okay. I hope that all of you are staying warm today. It's been a little chilly outside. For our final class, we're gonna just talk a little about assemble components, and we are gonna learn about joints and as-built joints a little more. We did some kind of animation on our last class with the hinge, and we're gonna see a little more about the other motions that you can use, rigid motions, sliding, and even a joint ball. That can be very useful for any of your projects, even if you want to show how something rotates, or I don't know. You can use it for a lot of things, and I think that is cool because a lot of people can actually see how things work. The last thing that we'll look is a little more about rendering. I showed you very quick the other day, but we can just talk a little more about rendering. Those are more photorealistic images that you can use at any point. Um, so let's just jump into it. Okay, I hope that, yep, you should be looking at my screen now. Um, so today we are not going to be building anything, but we're gonna use one of of the samples that Autodesk have. So all of you, if you have Vision, you should be able to access all of the samples in the data panel. And if you go to basic training, they're just gonna give you a lot of parts or models that you can use. So for this one, we're gonna go to assemblies, and we're gonna be using this tripod. It's a camera tripod. Okay, so the first thing that you have to do when you are working with these samples is you're gonna need to save these files again, because most of them are read-only files, so you won't be able to use it until you save it again. See, read-only. Um, so let's just save this one. Save as. You can find any location and just save. Okay, so now this file is not a read-only file. We can modify, do anything to it. So before adding all of the joints and all the motions, um, we can like understand a little bit about this file, a little more about this file. So on this left side, you'll be able to see all the components from this file. We're going to be using all of these components, and one thing that you need to understand is that we talked about components before when you are creating like parts for each of your 3D models, and when you are creating assemblies, you need to give motion and joints. Those are gonna work just with components and not with bodies. So if you are gonna make something and you want to create assemblies and motions, you have to create components and no bodies. All right. So the first thing is going down here in the timeline. This is a ground component. We're gonna talk a little more about it later, but for now, we have to get rid of this one. Okay. Now let's take a look at the model. You can see right now you can just drag these things all over the place because they are not assembled yet, and that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna put them together. Um, so in this position, if you ever move all of your components and you want things to go back into the original place, um, you can just go to position over here. After you move things, you'll be able to see the position, and if you click on revert, everything will go back to the original place. So that can be useful if you make any movement that you don't want. Or you can always just come here to the timeline and just move everything back. The first thing, you see the middle components on this tripod, and we're gonna drag this to one side because this is gonna help us to understand a little more about joints. So we have those things on one side. We don't want these components to like be moved back to the original position over here. So what we can do is just capture position. If we click on capture position, we won't be able to revert these ones to the original place. We don't need them to go back, so we're just gonna capture. That's fun. That happens when you are working at home. Your cat just jumps on your keyboard. All right. So after we have the capture position, if we come here to the timeline, you actually can just change that if you want them back in place, but we don't need that. Just like I was telling you before, you can either use the timeline if you need to. So let's zoom in here in the middle, and let's ground this piece, this middle piece, and to ground this middle piece, because we don't want this piece to be moved by any mistake, we're just gonna go on our side over here, stand one, this piece. We wanted to keep this piece on place. To do that, we're just gonna ground that component. So right click and ground component. By grounding this component, it doesn't matter what we do. This is not gonna. We won't be able to move this component at all when it's grounded. Okay. So let's start adding joints to the legs. So for when we create an assemble or a joint, there are as-built joints and there are joints. As-built joints, they need to be used when everything, like when every component is already in place. So in this case, our legs are in the right place, all of these components, and that's when we use as-built joints. When we have pieces like all over the place, for these pieces that are not in the place that we want them, for those ones we will use joints. So let's start with these pieces that are already in the place that we want. So let's click on assemble and let's create an as-built joint. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is to change the motion, and to change the motion we're gonna create a slider because we want this gray leg to go inside of this white leg, because that's gonna create like a telescopic kind of mechanism. So we're gonna change it to slider, and we're gonna select the leg, so this gray leg first. We are gonna select now the white too, and over here on this edge of the tube, we're gonna click on it too. We can see we're seeing an animation right now, and the animation it looks like what we need. So if we are like completely okay with it, that I think that is good, we can always click on and animate again to see the animation. I think that it's okay right now. We can click OK, and as you can see, this animation was applied to every single leg, and this happened because this model, so these legs, they were so this is the same one, so it's pretty much a copy and paste. So when you do something to one of them, it's gonna happen the same to the other ones, which that is easier for us. So if you have a repeated component, you can always just do that, and it's gonna apply that motion to every single leg. Okay. Now we need to add the same as view joint to all the caps at the end. So these like caps from the legs, we are gonna do the same. We're gonna go to assemble and as view joint. Let me go. I can see this one. Okay. So we don't want these ones to slide because there's really no place to slide. So we want them to stay on place, but to slide with this other component. So instead of a slider, we are gonna use the rigid option. That is gonna keep it in place, but still it's gonna slide with this other piece. So we're gonna select the cap, and we are gonna select the gray leg because we want these two going together, and we can click OK. Again, as you can see, everything is the same on the other caps. Okay. Now we're gonna do the same with these other caps on the top. So same, assemble, as view joint, and the joint type has to be rigid because we don't want them to move. And we are gonna select the top cap, and we're gonna select the white leg. Okay, everything looks good, and OK. All right. So far everything looks good, and we're gonna be doing the same thing with this arch connector. I don't know if you can see it. Oh, this arch connector. That's gonna allow us to, what is it? Oh, this arch connector. This is gonna keep everything in place. So let's use the same assemble as view joint. We are going to select this arch connector. This one over here inside, you can see it needs to be in rigid arch connector. We select that one, and we are gonna use this top cap so that everything is together. That's good. We're gonna click OK. All right, so all of our pieces of the legs are together now. This gray piece will come inside this white piece, but now we need all of these legs to rotate, because that's gonna it's a tripod, so this should like open and close, or rotate in this place. And so we're gonna need to use the revolute join for that. And let's go to the same. Uh, Everything, all the joints, we're going to be using the assemble tool. Um, so there's really nothing that complicated. You just need to know where to apply that motion depending on your 3D model. So let's use again spill. The joint type is not gonna be rigid, but it's gonna be revolute. So this one rotates um, around the joint origin. So we're gonna just choose the revolute tool for it. We need to select the connector from before. So this one that looks like an arch. We're gonna select that one first, and then we need to select this bracket over here. After selecting that bracket, we need to select where are we gonna use that revolution. So in this case, we have this little circle over here. We're just gonna click on that circle. If we can see, it's gonna show us an animation of that revolute. I think that it looks good. So, okay, I'm gonna just stop. I'm gonna click OK. All right. In this case, this is not gonna, the revolute is not gonna be applied to these other components because these are not individual components anymore. This is a whole piece that is together. So we need to do the same thing to each of these pieces. So let's just move and let's just repeat the same thing. It's already in revolute. We need this arch. We're gonna click on this other component and we're gonna use this circle. All right, that looks good. Okay. Again, spill join, revolute. I'm gonna choose this arch. I'm gonna select the component. We're gonna use this circle over here. Okay. So all of that looks very good now. So let's try these joints. Let's see how the joints are working right now. So if we double click on this kind of flag over here, we will be able to move our leg now. See? So it looks very nice. Okay. We can also move our legs in and out now because we apply already those motions. As you can see, this cap is going with the leg also up and down, and everything is together. So right now, all of our joints work the way that we want to, which is good. We can again just use the position and just click on revert so that we are back in the same position that we started before. So all of these are good, and you can apply this to, again, any of your models if you need to. And there's other motions, so you can find the one that fits your project. And I think that animations, this kind of animations, are very useful. Sometimes we don't know how to show how things work, and it's easier also for people to see how they work. So by doing it this way, it's just nicer and easy to understand. Okay, so let's attach our other components. And first, I'm just gonna create another assemble and as build joint. I'm gonna have rigid because rigid over here. And I'm gonna select this pin because I haven't attached this to anything. So I'm just gonna select this pin and I'm gonna select this stand connector over here. I'm gonna click OK. All right, that looks good. So I don't want that to go anywhere, so it's already attached, which is good. All right, so now we're gonna be using the join command, and we're gonna use it just because these are not in the right place. So we are gonna move these ones to our object, our main object. So again, assemble. You can go to assemble, and you can click join, or you can always press just J on your keyboard. When you learn these commands to use in your keyboard, it gets faster. You can save some time, but you also need good memory for it. So let's click on joint. So we need to look. Remove this. We need to be able to see the bottom of this piece for this joint. Okay, I think that looks good. In motion, we're gonna select rigid because we don't need this piece to move at all. We just need to put it on the right place on our other component over here. Rigid looks good. So we're gonna select the first component, and we need this surface over here, the inner surface. So we're gonna click on that one first, and I need to move again so that I can see the top of this component. And now we need to click this bottom edge of this circle so that we can have a good fit. This pin needs to be inside. If you can see, it's gonna place our component on this other one, and I think that is good right now. It's the position that I want, so I'm just gonna click OK on it. And now we need to move this one and put it on the inside of this other component because this is our ball joint. But we also need this boat to be able to move. So we're just gonna click on assemble again and joint. And then in motion, we're gonna select the ball motion. This is gonna create our like a ball joint. A ball joint component. We're gonna click on that ball component. Position. Again, the first component is gonna be this ball over here. So we're gonna click on that one, and our second component needs to be the inside of this other component where the ball is gonna fit. See? So right now, I think that looks good. We're gonna click OK. So that looks good. Let me just try our component now, so that we know that it's working. If you double click on that flag, you'll be able to move that component. One thing that you will notice is that this goes through these other components, and that can be fixed, but it's gonna take some time. Fusion, you are able to create limits in Fusion, and creating limits will allow you to tell this component that they won't be able to touch these other surfaces, and that will take some time, and we are not doing it today, but this is our last class, so I would suggest that if you want to do that, or if you're gonna be creating any assembles or motions and joints, that will help you to create a more realistic motion and animation. Uh, but at least these are the basics, and this is gonna help you to show that um, functionality of your projects. So this looks good, and I'm just gonna show you again. These are components. You can always make them work. Again, click. All the legs, they can be moved to any position that you want. I think that I just think that this is a very cool option and tool from Fusion. So let's just move everything back in place. So we covered already joints and as-built joints. For those, don't forget that you need to create components and not bodies. If you create bodies, Fusion won't allow you to have any motions on them. So just be sure that you create components and no bodies when you are making your 3D model. The last thing that I want to show you all is again rendering. We touched this in our first class, but I just want to show you that Fusion does an okay job with photorealistic images, and you know I have worked with renderings before with Keyshot, and Keyshot does a very good job, but at least to show some materials on models, I think that Fusion does a good job. And it's very easy. You just click on this box and you change from design where you are creating to render. Okay. So here we have our model, and again, to apply materials, you can always click on appearance or just right click on appearance, and let's look for some metal materials for this object. Maybe aluminum. And the only thing that you need to do is when you find the material, you just click on the material and you drag to the component that you want. See, so this is aluminum. Let's put aluminum in our legs, and before this, let's have a I don't know, normal aluminum for it. I'm not sure about that one. I'm just gonna change it to the white one that we had before. But you can play with all of this. Okay, and that looks cool. Maybe steel for this piece of the camera. So right now, you'll be able just to save this image. You will need to place the image on. If you want this to, if you want to save this image, you need to put your 3D model on the position that you want, and then you can just save or capture image. You are able to capture images as a JPEG. You can have a PNG. PNG will be without background, so you can play more with them. And one cool thing from Fusion also is that you can set up scenes. Um, Fusion comes with some of them that you can use. So, I mean, they are not the best. You can always take a picture. Sometimes we want to put our 3D model in, I don't know, in any place. Let's say that you are creating this for your kitchen. So you can always take a picture of your kitchen, and you can just put it in the background here, and you can move your object so that it looks like realistic in your kitchen. Um, so that way you can have like the whole context of the environment um, for that object. So let's just select, because this is the only one that we have, Plaza. So let's use Plaza, and right now we cannot see it, so we have to go to settings, and background, we have solid color, so we had to change this to environment so that we can see uh, our scene. So if you can see, we have the plaza, and we have our tripod. Um, okay, so we will be able to move this object. So if we click on pan, you will be able to move and place it anywhere that you need. So that's why I'm telling you that if you have the kitchen, you're able just to move this object anywhere. You can change like the position. You can just play with it. Um, if you, well, over here you can play even with the lights and the shadows, so that everything like matches your background or your environment. um, and if you place the right lights and the right shadows, uh, it can be almost as real as if you have it in like in a physical way. um, so if you play with those things, you can create like very cool pictures. A lot of people don't use them, but I just think that it's a nice way to show your ideas. Um, all right, so this is what I wanted to show you today. So today we are not taking a long time on it. So we are not taking a long time on it, but I wanted to show you those things. Um, Use animations, use your motions, play with the renderings. Um, Hopefully next semester we can see more things that Fusion has. Fusion even has testing for materials, which I think that is cool. I don't use those that much, uh, just because of my background in industrial design. We don't do those things that much. But again, I hope that all of this help you in any way. Um, I hope that you can use them, and just keep exploring, keep watching tutorials. I learn most of my 3D software just looking tutorials in YouTube. So you can just keep learning. You can go to YouTube and just learn more. Hopefully next semester we can see more things. But I hope that all of this works for you. Um, if you have any questions, you know that I'm in Teams or even an email. So if you need any help with these things or with other software, if I know the other software, just let me know. Um, but today, this is the end of the class, so I hope that this worked for you, and I hope to see you guys around. And that's it. That's it for today. So I guess what I promised the last class, we did it this class. We finished early. Um, Stay warm, you guys. This is gonna be available later. Again, Robin is gonna put it in YouTube, but I believe you'll be able to access this after we finish with the class. So I'm just gonna stop recording now.